All rise for the pledge, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Welcome to the April 22nd public session with the trustees here. We have a public comment. There's a first of all, there's a board presentation, Beach Plum Meadows at 248 Moses Lane. Have a lot of letters here in opposition to this. We're going to do a public comment section before the presentation, and we're going to do a resolution after the presentation. And then what I'll do is I'll have a public comment section directly after that, which if anybody afterwards wants to say something about the decision of the board at that point in time. So I'll leave it up to everybody who's signed up here, so whether or not you want to make a comment before or after the presentation. So Joe McLaughlin?
Before.
Okay, come on up there. Yeah. Okay.
My name is Joseph McLaughlin. I reside at 436 Hill Street in Southampton. At the last meeting of the board, I had presented to you several quotes from the master plan, which would be have a negative effect on the proposed building. And I had mentioned to you that the master plan talks about traffic, including the roads by the proposed buildings or condos. It mentions traffic 28 times, the quality of life 15 times, small-scale buildings 18 times, and the preservation of open space 28 times. Not once did the master plan encourage a large-scale building, or definitely not large condominiums on small pieces of property. And I also mentioned that if this is approved, there could be an increase of 117 cars within the village. If you couple that with Bishop's Pond, the increase in the requirements of beach stickers could possibly be as high as 270 cars. Anyone who likes to swim in the ocean, I'm sure, would be able to tell you that during the summer, oftentimes you cannot find a parking space at any of the village parking areas. Cooper's Beach could be all jammed up. Halsey Neck, Crider's Beach, all the beaches were pretty much tied up or full during the summertime. I would like to, if I may, just read a couple of little excerpts from the master plan. Southampton should enact certain changes to the bulk requirements in the zoning code to lessen the scale of density of housing. The village should not resort to upzoning, increasing the minimum lot size. The recommended bulk changes maintain the existing zoning requirements on the minimum lot size, but reduce somewhat the scale of the new construction. And the other thing is possibly a solution to the dilemma which faces the board. On page 77 of the master plan, it states this: throughout the comprehensive planning process, An interest was expressed in the effect of increasing minimum residential lot sizes in order to conserve land. The plan does not recommend this. While upzoning does reduce the overall number of new houses that could be constructed, the primary goal of conserving land and creating significant open space is not achieved. This can only be created through clustering. And as you all know, several times the village has, the planning board and the board of trustees have approved clustering. Of course, I'm sure you all know what clustering is. Clustering is with to take a large piece of property with a certain zoning and bring the houses in together and leave a lot of open space. Thank you for listening to me.
Please.
I have lived at the corner of Halsey and Hill Street. Oh, Leith McLaughlin, sorry. 436 Hill Street. I have lived at the corner of Hill and Halsey Neck Lane for 30 years, and I have watched the heart of the village being impacted by the increase of traffic, cars, trucks, and I am against this proposal because of the change of zoning to increase density. This is totally out of character for the village, and it will have a severe negative environmental impact on the surrounding neighborhood and the village. There is no community benefit to this development. This development is widely opposed and is being the subject of many discussions and at the CAC, which I've attended. I have made copies of the latest meeting so that the board can gauge the community's feelings. Please make this a part of the record. I have copies, okay?
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks. Dorothy?
Dorothy Sommer?
Yes. Okay, thanks. Yeah. Ron?
Ron Alexander, 35 Fox Hollow Lane. I've been a resident there for 25 years, and basically this is just one more step away from the reason we're all here. The increase in density is just not suitable for the neighborhood, and the traffic is getting scary. Thank you.
Thanks, Ron. Kathleen?
I'll speak up.
Okay. James Joplin?
My wife and I live at 10 Pelham Street, and we're building a house there now, and have been for a while, and we oppose this zoning change as well because we're very concerned about what our properties will be worth after this change, the amount of traffic that will be coming down Moses and Pelham Street, and the way that the village life will be changed by having this kind of density. We've already got Bishop's Pond down below us, and this is we're very much against this, and we want to go on record as that.
Okay, thank you. Donna Delia?
Hi, Donna DeLeo, 125 Fox Hollow Lane. I just want to echo the concerns of everyone that has gotten up and spoken here tonight. My husband and I are concerned about all of the issues that the people have raised.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks.
Deborah?
And we oppose.
Okay.
Deborah Kendrick. I live at 233 White Street. I haven't seen the plan, and I don't know a lot about it. I just don't picture a lot of local seniors being able to afford to live there. I don't know if a lot of seniors go to the beach. I don't know if that's a problem. The building in this village is beyond. This is supposed to have, eventually have 53 units perhaps. If you count the number of people that can fit in the huge houses that are going up, they're more of a problem maybe than this multi-unit place. The building is beyond what should happen here. And we shouldn't be welcoming or make it easy for this to happen. It's a village that everybody seems to love. I don't understand how these people get this far.
Thanks. Grace?
Go after.
Okay. All right. Anthony? Okay, after. Joan Fitzgerald? Oh, you're right. Sitting there.
Hi, Joan Fitzgerald, 10 Willow Street in Southampton. I've lived in the village for over 40 years, and 8 years ago, I took some time away to look at different areas to see where I would like to retire. I went to a couple of places where I was welcomed with friendship and open arms. But I came back every 4 to 5 months to see my family and check on my property. And what I discovered was how much I missed my home, my village. I've worked here between Main Street and Job's Lane for 40 years. My kids bussed tables at all of the local restaurants. And what I realized was I didn't have the history and the memories with all of the wonderful new people I met. And when I came home, it warmed my heart, and I realized how much I missed the ocean, how much I missed the library, how much I missed walking down Main Street and having people say, "Hey, Joan, good to see you." May sound corny, but it's very real. I know there's an old saying that you can't uproot an old tree and replant it. It will die. And I've experienced that. That's true. The joy and happiness I have of living here is, I don't have words for it. I want to stay here. I very much ask the board to please let this application go forward. I think it's very important that it plays out, that it just can't be stopped. I think that you trustees have a fiduciary obligation to the seniors in this community to let it play out, let it go to the planning board, let them decide what will happen. That's all I ask. Thank you.
Joan. Jeannie? Jeannie Bulger? There you are, okay. Did I get that right?
Yes,
Sorry.
thanks.
Okay.
My name is Jean Bolger, and I live at 94 Corrigan Street, and I'm a recent person living in the village. And I just would like to thank you for serving and giving your time. My main home is in Manhasset, and right now we have enormous poles going up. You may have read about it in Newsday. And these poles for the electricity are twice as high, maybe even 3 times as high as what any normal person would see on the block. And we're all shocked. And we live in a village, too. And we're sort of wondering, how did this happen? You know, how did this happen? And no one knew anything about it. So that's the reason I'm here, because I would just like to say, I don't want to have to see that here. I don't want to have to see that where everyone just says, you know, 3 years from now, when this development goes up, how in the world did this happen? Like, why didn't anybody tell us about this? Why didn't they explain, you know, what this was really going to mean to us? I live here in a very modest home. We have a Cape Cod home. And, you know, Corrigan Street is kind of that street where everybody who, you know, used to work here, they still live there. And our street will be drastically impacted by this development because it's just going to happen, that the traffic will increase. I understand that senior citizens need and should have a place to live, but it's over 50 units where the zoning is half acre. And I just don't understand how that can be justified. I realize you have a very difficult task, and, you know, whatever your decision will be, you obviously care about the village even more than I do as a new resident. But I just, you know, beg you that we don't fall into the same pattern where our elected officials just, you know, really aren't speaking for us. And that's exactly how I feel, having gone through this situation in Manhasset. And I wish I had brought a picture for you, because you would think it looks like something out of like a horror movie, how high those poles are. And nothing will be done now because they're in. You know, by the time they have the hearings on them, they're done. They've spent $7 million putting those poles in, and now nothing can be done about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Rose?
It's a hard name.
Okay.
Don't give it to Steve.
I'm Rose Kernican. I live at 78 Moses Lane. I wanted to add my voice to the voices of opposition to the project, which are here, but also wanted to say that people come to this village because they're fleeing density, and that if you overbuild the village in the longer term, your property values will not be supported as we all want them to be. Thank you very much.
Thanks. These are the people that have signed up. Anyone else? Francis?
My name is Frances Genovese. I'm sorry I didn't sign the list to speak, but I would like to speak anyway. The first thing I'd like to say is that I hope the board isn't skewed by the fact that everybody who opposes this application couldn't come tonight. This application, though it seems to have a lot of time to be developed, was dumped on the board the week of Christmas, and now it's the week after Easter. Those are traditionally times when a lot of people are not here. However, they have spoken. What you have, which Leith McLaughlin gave you, is minutes from the CAC where it's a constant topic of conversation. I'd like to reiterate very quickly what I've said before the board several times. Number one, we do not want this to go beyond this point. We think it should be quashed here and not be sent to the planning board for their intelligence on this. This board is entrusted with the decision-making on an issue like this, on a change of zone. We don't need, actually, at this point, planning board information. The second thing that was stressed here before is the half-mile zoning, which we have indicated we think is porous, discriminatory. It will be challenged, which means that you will put a double burden on the citizens who have to challenge it and also on defending you who are sued. Something came up today, just about an hour ago, which is the standards that you have imposed on issuing a permit for an amusement. Is everybody aware of that? Mr. DePietris, are you aware of that standard?
I don't know what you're referring
You don't. Oh, let me see if I can find the pages of the code. They're probably over there. At any rate, yeah, here they are. They're very specific. No license shall be issued for any show, performance, or exhibition as aforesaid if the village clerk shall find that 6 or more dwelling houses are located within a circle defined by using a radius of 1/2 mile, taking as a center point the center point of the showgrounds or exhibition grounds as indicated upon said map. Said center point shall be determined by using the center point of the smallest circle, which will entirely encompass all parts and portions of such showgrounds. This goes on. At any rate, it's here because there are definitive standards in your own code as to how you measure a half mile to give a permit for a circus. But for a multi-million-dollar real estate deal, it's very open. And it's discriminatory. It benefits 2 or 3 people, which goes to the argument also that there is no community benefit from this project. Now, we've also mentioned before the conditions that Mr. Corrigan has on his other property where he recreates Rambo, and so I can tell you that the neighborhood is not predisposed to extend any special consideration to the Corrigans. That's just a side point. But I think that I would like this board to look at the incentives that you're offering this developer and this particular property owner. If you look at any of the serious studies, not the public relations stuff that comes out, but the serious studies on zoning and land availability in Long Island by the Roush Institute, for instance, you'll find that the single problem out here is that there is no land available. So it's very difficult for us to understand why you're offering incentives that were developed on the state level to entice developers to come in here to develop where they might not ordinarily want to. I'm talking about the taxation, this half mile. Think about it. You have to protect valuable real estate here, and yet everybody comes in here with this idea. This developer is one of them, that I'm going to buy the property based on the fact that I get approval. I want pre-approval. Change the law because I want to build. That is the opposite direction. Mr. McLaughlin told you that's the opposite direction of your master plan. It also defies logic. There is no land out here. Why would special concessions be made? You know, in the face of all this opposition, in the face of the environmental impact, the face of the taxation, which is lower. They were given a tax incentive that was developed by New York State to get people to develop on brownfields and in urban areas around railroad stations where nobody wants to live. You're offering the same kind of bait to people who want to come from Mid-Island, and I don't know that you particularly want this kind of development. What you have here is, as much as we could gather, what you have here is a list of all the other meadows that this developer has developed. He's developed a meadow in Setauket, he developed a meadow in Eastport, and he wants to make you one of a series to develop it here. And one of the last page of that you will see is what the developer himself considers to be a major community benefit, which is that he will pave over this street and make this a walking path to meet that 1/2 mile criteria. If this is what anybody here wants to look at, they should express that. But our point is, and I can say it before or after, we want it to be squashed now, not go to the planning board.
All right, thanks, Fran. In the back, there one section of those. Thanks.
Good evening. My name is Richard Riley.
Actually, if you'll just go to the microphone so we can capture that.
Richard Riley. I live at 22 Henry Street. There 20 years. I agree with everything that these people have said. My wife and I are very vigorously against this proposition. But the one thing that I haven't heard, this is the second meeting we come to and it hasn't been brought up, I'm sure you're well aware of what's going on in Long Island with the water supply. And the reason that the water supply is so bad, it's not the runoff, it's not the materials that they're putting on the lawns, it's the dry wells, the septic tanks. That's the problem. And you're going to add more to the destruction of our water supply here. We're going to be out of water before you know it. And this is going to make it happen quicker. So this is what you're going to do if you allow these people to come in.
Okay. Thanks. Actually, one.
Good afternoon. My name is Linda Kurtz. I live at 50 Fox Hollow Lane. I drove out from New York City today to address you. And I also join in the opposition of all the people here today that have spoke and all the letters. And I thought about, we've all been thinking about this development over the winter. And what I want to share with you is a specific thought I had this winter when I was visiting my mother-in-law in Florida. And the relevance is that when I spoke to Mr. Tunis over the winter, we talked a little bit about the benefits of what this kind of development would bring. And one of which he said was that think about the reduced landscaping. And I was sitting at my mother-in-law's condo, whatever, at her development, and all you could hear was the lawnmowers and the tree cutters and the bushes, and she said it goes on 24/7. And I think what people have to realize is that this development is that. It's a big development in a small space. It doesn't fit. It doesn't fit with the zoning of the R20 half-acre residential designation. We're not telling the Corrigans not to build on their land, which is allowed. We're telling them they can't raise it to a multi-district level. We hope that the buck will stop with this Board of Trustees and not let it go to the Planning Board. I think that as our elected officials, you are charged with the duty to stop saying that, well, it could have been 35 feet high or it could have been this big, but now it's only going to be that big. I think sometimes you just have to say, I'm sorry, no, this isn't welcome here. And I hope that the support of all these people will give you the strength to do that. Thank you.
Thanks, Linda. Dana?
Dannenberger, 89 Henry Street. The incongruities of the extremes are just beyond the pale. It's amazing me. I don't know how many months you spent on trying to get another grocery store here. The water supply is a big issue because all of Long Island, the water comes from the ground, not like the rest of New York where it comes from the mountains and flows down. So all things considered, that, and on top of which, that all of Long Island, it was an armory, and that's why the water supply is so bad. But that's another story. But I think also that they're calling for a sewage treatment plant, and the only thing close to that is for the hospital. Okay, so I just think that yes, it's a great idea. It's just not a great idea for Southampton. In other words, we're not equipped for this on the streets. We're not equipped in the grocery stores. We're not equipped for water. We're not equipped for electricity. We're still paying on our electric bill to be able to have some of those lines buried. Okay, and it's still, it's just. You can only stretch it so far, and then it's going to snap. So I kind of think that the incongruity that the board allows people, I know it's their right, but allows them to come before the board and present this and say, we want. That, they can want anything they want, but anything they please. But I think that to give it time and attention and credibility is incongruous to what this village is to represent, once it's out there, it's just like, you can unscrew a light bulb, you can't unscrew a pregnant woman. And the bottom line is that once it's out there, it's too late. I've got construction on either side of me, and sure, Michael,
I'm not even responding.
Michael Irving is saying that, the setbacks are, they're pushing the envelope awful far on these small lots. Well, once they get it organized and such and we're talking about things that exist, not things that we'd like to change for that. But once they get it organized, it's too late. It's already out there. So once this is built for whatever purposes, I just think it's unfair. I think what Deborah said, too, is interesting. That it's not for the seniors here. It's too expensive for the seniors that are here. It's a different situation.
Thanks,
so that's the story. My story.
Jim?
I'm going to use that phrase.
I'm not.
My name is James Kennedy, 150 Harvest Lane. I spoke April 10th against the condo project. I'm not going to repeat anything I said. I just wish to add my voice in opposition to this project, and I think many reasons have been cited tonight. So I am against this project. Thank you.
Thanks. Anyone else from the public? Yes. Just going up to.
Hi, Hi, my name is Noelle Bailey, and I live at 147 Sandy Hollow Road. We bought our property, my husband and I, about 4 years ago. And ever since we have moved in, we've noticed a pattern in Southampton and the Southampton Township of not overdevelopment per se, but a want from developers to come in and buy property and then expect for it to automatically be changed. We are still dealing with a property next to us that changed from a 16-unit condo for first responders, which went to a massive apartment rental complex. And that was a bait and switch that we dealt with. One of the things that I'm concerned about with this property is, yes, it is, right now it's for senior housing, but once the building starts going and they can't sell the units, is the owner of the property going to say that he has faced a hardship now and now it's open to the public? It seems far-fetched, but it's really, I'm seeing a pattern here, and I just think that we should stop it before it starts. When somebody buys a property with the intent of overdeveloping it and asking you to do downzoning, we create an expectation for developers to come in and purchase properties and say, oh, well, I'm going to buy this one, and it's zoned for a single-family home, or it's zoned for 17 homes, and what the hey, we're going to put 30 or 56, and it just keeps going and going. I don't understand why developers can't come in and purchase properties like this and develop for the as-of-right zoning. It's not a big thing to ask, and it's not a big thing to ask the Corrigan family to say this is what the property is zoned for, this is what you're selling it at. Why don't you do it as you're allowed, like everyone else does?
Okay.
So I don't live particularly close to this development, but I know that it will affect me and impact me greatly, because we're setting precedents when we allow the density to come in at this double, triple the amount that is originally allowed for. And I agree, it's a small town, and we all move out here or stay here because we want the rural feel. We want to live in a small town. I enjoy that I can look out in the audience right now and say hello to many new neighbors and friends that I've met since fighting mine, and this has become a home to me. And I believe that they could do a development in this property that would be consistent with what we all moved here and live here for.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Anyone else like to speak? Okay. So we're going to close this public comment section. We have a board presentation, Beach Plum Meadows, 248 Moses Lane. Gil Flanagan, attorney.
Good evening, members of the board, members of the audience. I want to start out by saying that we're here for a procedural matter only. I've heard a lot of comments. I heard them at the first hearing. I've heard them at the CAC, and all of those questions and comments would normally be addressed during the normal course of an application as it works its way through the various processes. I would submit that what is before you this evening is the question of referring this application to the planning board. That is the first step in the process, which is a multi-step process, as you probably know. And I think what we're talking about here is a matter of procedural due process. Now, we started this whole meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance, and that still means something to me, and I would hope that at least you would follow the procedure which I see that the code sets forth. And just so that everybody knows, you are not allowed under the regulations to take any action on this application, for, against, or with modifications or whatever, until the planning board would come back to you with some sort of report. And it's very clear in the wording of the code. I just want to read the operative section and the reason that I'm here tonight. It's found in section 116-6.1D of the Village Code. It's very short, and I'll read it very quickly. Upon receipt of a properly completed application for establishment of a new MFPRD district, as provided in subsection C hereof, 8 copies of such application shall be referred by the Village Board of Trustees to the Planning Board for review and report. This is not a may, or possibly, it's a shall, and a shall has a specific legal meaning. It is something that the board is compelled to do. Now, I would submit that we have submitted a complete application. There was an application that was filed in December, supplemented by an application, additional information given to you on February 24th, which addressed, in particular, the so-called half-mile issue, which was the only substantive issue with this section of the code that I heard at the first hearing. That all should be part of the record that you have in front of you. And that consisted of a certification by a surveyor as to a location of a portion of this property within the half-mile radius, and it was also accompanied by a memorandum of law prepared by someone of counsel to my office. This is not a request for a decision on the merits. As I said before, you are not allowed to make a decision on the merits. It is important to note that if the planning board makes a report and comes back to you, only then can you hold a public hearing. And everybody that made a comment here this evening and all those else who want to comment would have the opportunity to voice all of those concerns. Now, suffice it to say that during the course of this process, all of the issues that I've heard tonight and all of the issues that I've heard at the previous meeting would all be addressed in detail. Parking, traffic, drainage, water supply, all of these things would have to be reviewed before this board or the planning board could take any final action. And I've handled, more than a couple of applications before various boards, and it's been my experience that what goes into the pipeline is quite often very different from what comes out of the pipeline. So just because you have this particular application in front of you doesn't mean that you or the planning board or anybody else has to give it a rubber stamp. It could be modified, it could be morphed, but let the process work. Let the boards, let the public together have a chance to review it and make a project that is good for everybody. I would say again that my comments are mainly procedural in nature. I think it is your obligation and your duty to refer this matter to the planning board. By your doing that, you're not taking a position one way or the other. All you're doing is following your own code. And by the way, it's a code that I'm somewhat familiar with because I'm one of the people who drafted it back in 1990, so I know wherever I speak. Thank you.
If I may, my name is John Bennett and Reed, 212 Windmill Lane, Southampton, and I represent the property owners, the Corrigans, Edward and Helen Pat Corrigan. From my reading of the code section that's applicable here, it's in your code. Your predecessors were the drafters of this code and enacted it after public hearing. My reading of the code sections regarding an application of this nature, it's quite straightforward. The board is required to send the application to the planning board. And the word in the statute, the operative word in the statute is shall. And this is not precatory language, which is what lawyers refer to as language where there's a suggestion. It's directive. Why is this required? Because you have a planning board and you have this procedure for a reason. These are the folks with the land use expertise. What happens from a referral? Suggestions are made for modifications, conditions. The property is analyzed for the property's suitability for the project. We don't know what the project will look like after the referral. As a matter of fact, in my almost 30 years of practicing land use law, rare is the project that is referred by a legislative body such as yourself that doesn't come back with some fairly significant suggestions for modifications, changes, etc. At the same time, this referral does not bind you to any course of action, but the concept is for your land use board to advise you. It's similar to referral in some aspects to a referral to the Suffolk County Planning Commission. It's a procedure in your law, and it's essentially in every local code, and it was enacted so that your decision is informed not only by public pressure, but it's an intellectual decision, not merely informed by generalized complaints. And that's the whole purpose for it. You have said these applications are to be informed applications, informed by the land use body that you have appointed. And presumably you wouldn't have appointed them if you didn't think they had special expertise. You have an engineer on the board. You have board members with specific expertise, and this is why you appointed them, and you're supposed to gain the benefit of their knowledge on these applications, which is why the language is shall. We're all neighbors in this village. We have rights, including the right to petition this board. And we have the right to have those rights that are in the zoning code respected, and respected as per your own law. And a family with such long-standing roots in the community deserves the benefit of the law, and they also deserve the acknowledgement of their contributions to the community. The Corrigan family, on a personal note, is a family that is especially significant for me, as it is for all long-time residents and families. My family goes back many, many, many generations in this community. In my law office, which was my father's, and I'm telling you this for a reason, which was my father's contracting office, and my grandfather's contracting office before him, I have all the signs that were displayed on the building over the last 120 years. And the oldest one is a brass and painted glass sign that says Donnelly and Corrigan, from the turn of the last century. And that's the firm, Donnelly and Corrigan, that was Ebby Corrigan's grandfather's firm. And that's my grandfather bought that construction firm. This is a family with long, deep roots, with significant community service. A family that's been respected, that's loved by all longtime local residents. And the minimal benefit of a referral required by law is what they're asking, and they deserve this respect. I don't think anyone can argue with that. Okay, so I would again ask you simply to do what your law requires you to do and refer this to the Planning Commission. Thank you. Or the Planning Board, I should say. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else for the applicant? No, we're just, we're in board presentation now, so it's only Corrigan or the applicants. So, we actually have a resolution drafted. Rick, would you like to speak about that?
As you're aware, this matter is not before you for a resolution granting or denying the application. This matter is before you either for a resolution referring the application to the Planning Board or declining to entertain the application. Under the written determination which I presented to you, an interpretation is made regarding the 1/2 mile location standard that's in this code, and the interpretation being made is that this application does not meet or satisfy that location standard, and in view of that, the determination would decline to entertain the application.
Okay. Anybody from the board want to make comment? Rich?
Just that, obviously, there's a lot of people who said a lot of things tonight, and it has been said. Certainly, how somebody should handle their property and what they want to do with it, I don't think anybody in this room takes lightly.
I can't hear you.
So, and I respect the ability and the desire for the Corrigans to maximize the use out of their property and try to do what they can. I think anybody would like to do that. But obviously there are many concerns to this. More importantly, through council, the interpretation of the main part of this proposal, in addition to the overall public good, public benefit, and the immediate public benefit, meaning the immediate neighbors, which are predominantly in this room right now. So it is because of considering all those things, again, not to be taken lightly, but based on what our council has provided here with how he interprets this code is what I'm willing to go along with.
Mike, did you want to?
There is a fine line between the applicant and the board that is reviewing the application, and council has referred to often the procedural methods of it, and you spoke about the shall. On a procedural basis, and not to get involved on the development basis, because there is a lot of strong feeling there, I am not sure that the applicant has presented to this board sufficient evidence on the half mile. It's an interpretation, nor do I feel that their description of the project and its benefit to the community was adequately done. And that's why we've asked council to present us with a resolution.
Nancy, would you like to make a comment?
No, I recuse myself.
Bill?
Just simply, our attorney's advice to us after a great deal of study and consideration is that we find that this application does not meet or satisfy the threshold location standard. And I'm going to go along with the legal advice that we are given and paying for.
And because of a legal matter between a family member of mine and a family member of the developer, on the advice of counsel, I'm going to recuse myself from the vote. So we're going to have a resolution.
Would be if you want to vote on this determination, it would be a motion to adopt the written determination presented by the village attorney.
And just read the last line of that determination, please.
That's exactly what we're...
Okay. The last line, after going through the interpretation, etc., is, for reasons previously indicated, we determined that this application will not be entertained, and we decline formal consideration of this application.
Motion to adopt. Need a motion?
We need
Make a motion to vote on this resolution.
Second?
Roll call vote. Trustee Az?
Aye.
Trustee Irving?
Aye.
Trustee Hetrick?
Aye.
Trustee McCann? Recuse?
I recuse myself.
Trustee Ripley?
Recuse.
So moved.
So if you're wondering what happened, okay, which I think many people are, the application was denied by the village board in that we believe that it did not meet the standard set for the half-mile distance between the office district and the property. And that's what the...
One slight correction, it's not a denial.
It's not a denial.
It's not a formal denial. It's a determination that it does not meet the standard and therefore will not be entertained.
Right. So we're not making a motion to send this to the planning board. So it's here. So that being said, I'd said we would do a public comment after this, if anybody would like to speak. Francis?
I would like to reassure you that we take the zoning as seriously as you do. I would defend to the death the Corrigan's right to develop as of right. Since this application is going to come back again, I assume, can we answer some questions about it that have surfaced again and again? What is the estimated price of one of these units that they're putting up for senior citizens?
I don't know.
Okay, when do we ever know what this, is there a marketing plan for this? Absent a marketing plan, the hardship issue, looms very large. Without a coherent, researched marketing plan. Also, there is no, as far as I could see, there's nothing to substantiate the claim that there is a need for a senior citizen. The senior citizen who was here just left, and she'd like to stay in the village, but I don't know why she needs 56 units to accommodate herself. If she, I'm certainly happy if she stays, but she doesn't need 56 units. The other thing is that I think because there's popular misconception, despite all the love and tradition that Mr. Bennett refers to, as to what role Mrs. Corrigan plays in the planning procedure here. Is Mrs. Corrigan a member of the planning board? Or
The applications, we're not sending it to the planning board.
You're not. I know, but it just because we need
She's
these.
a member of the planning.
She's
She's a
a member.
volunteer in our community.
Okay.
That serves on the planning board.
Okay, so I look on that note. I look forward with great expectation to the intellectual discussion.
Okay, Mr. Wines there.
My name's William Wines, 59 High Street in Southampton. Quite honestly, I'm a little disappointed right now. I am a little shocked, actually. You're missing a great opportunity. You know, there's a lot of people here speaking against it, but there's also a lot of people that support this project. And I just want to talk to you a little bit about the community benefit that's been nailed on so badly. You know, it's dismissed as if there is no need for senior housing. One of the things, I went to BC for my MBA degree. And one of the things I actually studied during my time at BC was the growing aging population in the United States, which is even more so out here. Does anyone know the median age in Southampton? It's 50, which is way above the national average, which is way above what it was in Southampton in 1970 when it was about 39 years old. The growing population, the expanding population need for, the expanding need for senior housing is a nationwide epidemic right now. It's actually, if you look at the Joint Center for Housing Studies, it's their #1 big issue for the next 10 years. This isn't some, you know, fluff publication. This is the Bible, so to speak, on housing needs in the United States. And all they talk about is the fact that the population is getting older. People cannot continue to age in place. It's going to be a growing problem, not just for the next 10 years, but for the next 50 years. And just on a separate note, I'm sorry, I'm a little flustered. I wasn't expecting to talk tonight. But just on one of the other issues, does anyone know what's happened to the population of Southampton over the last 100 years? In 1930, the population of the United States, of Southampton, was 3,700. In 1970, it was around 4,900. Now it's around 3,000. At a time when Southampton town grew by 370%, Southampton Village dropped by 17%. You understand the implication that has, right, on how you're going to fill your boards, how you're going to find volunteers for the fire department, which is volunteer.
Excuse me 1 second. If we have like everybody to show respect to the speaker, please. Thank you.
You know, I look at my grandmother. My grandmother came back to Southampton. My grandmother moved away in 2010 for 2 years. She moved away because my sister lives in Virginia, and she wanted to be around her grandchildren. But she became sick, and she came back. And there was no place for her to come. And she passed away in her home. I ended up spending most of my days actually taking care of her with the help of my father, because there was no place in Southampton to bring her back. There's a lack of options. You know, the developer has gotten knocked from people who have never even bothered to meet him. He's a nice guy. The idea that he's pitching right now is also an idea I pushed on him. This is something I really care about. This is not just, you know, about money either. I'm looking at needs in the village. Where am I supposed to live? You know, there's a lack of housing for young individuals. There's a lack of housing for older individuals. There's more to it than just opposing upzoning or opposing downzoning or short-term needs of housing values in a neighborhood. There's more at stake here, and you need to consider that. And I'm disappointed that this wasn't even referred to the planning board for consideration. I mean, you have a planning board for a reason. You squashed debate before it even began. You know, I have a petition that I didn't even circulate that had 20 or 30 signatures, and I hadn't even circulated it yet. I mean, this is I'm amazed that you could just let 20 or 30 people come into a room, say they don't want to debate, and then you just shut it down. The debate isn't supposed to even begin until it goes to the planning board. I consider my mother. She lives in the community. She works in the community. She's 59 years old. She's not going to live in her house her entire. She can't maintain the yard. I mean, there's going to be things she's going to have to do. So what she's going to have to do? She's going to have to move away. I mean, I'm just disappointed that this was shut down on a technicality rather than even letting it air out in an open field. You know, I'm just disappointed that didn't get a further discussion.
Hello. I'm Dorothy Somek, and I live directly across the street from the property. I have a house at 255 Moses, and I also own 265 Moses Lane. And I bought the house 255 about 18 years ago. And I've been, facing this empty lot, kind of messy, all these years. And it's going to be developed anyway. It's a question of, do we want houses or do we want a senior community? And listen, I think if it goes to the planning board, we can talk about how many units are involved. But I would rather have 1 or 2 driveways instead of 5 or 6. And I think if you have 1 pool instead of 19, you're going to have less traffic coming in to maintain the pool. You're going to have less landscaping. I mean, there's a lot of benefits to having this type of community instead of 19 houses or 20 houses. So let it go to the planning board. Let's see if we can cut down the number of units. Let's just give it a chance at least. I mean, I am mostly affected by it, and I'm right there. So I vote that we give it a chance and see what happens and work together. Mr. Tunis is a nice man. He's reasonable, and I think we can work together with this instead of just shutting it down, and I agree with this young man also. So I vote to give it a chance and send it on.
Thanks. Anyone else? Francis, you've already, Jim.
James Kennedy, 150 Harvest Lane. I met the developer. I listened to a pitch that he made. He came across as a nice guy. However, when I asked him the price of the units, couldn't give me a price. And everyone else I've spoken to had the same answer. Couldn't get a price. It's for seniors. I think the prevailing feeling is that this is not on the up and up. It's not, there's a bit of a sham involved. And why hasn't he been more forthcoming? If this is to provide housing for senior citizens looking to downscale, particularly people in the village, it doesn't seem feasible based on what I've heard and what many of the people that I've spoken to have heard. I wish to applaud the board for your decision. That makes a lot of sense. And we'll see what happens in the future. Thank you.
Anyone else from the public like to speak? Yeah, Joe.
Once again, Joseph McLaughlin, 436 Hill Street. When they were building the nursing home down here, and I sat on the board, I wrote a letter to the Suffolk County Water Authority and asked them how they felt about the increase of density over at the nursing home. And Michael LeGrand, who was president of Suffolk County Water Authority, replied to my letter, and he said it's marginal at best. So if we have all the increases of density so close to the water tower, I think possibly some member of the board should write to the Suffolk County Water Authority and ask them what the impact would be with the increase in density over there by the water tower. Thank you.
John.
John Wines, 59 Wilshire Street, Southampton. You all know I was born and raised in this village, and my father served a long time as mayor and on the planning board. There are very few families that have been more concerned about planning issues in this village than my family. My father was one of the founders of the land trust. This issue is important to me, and I didn't speak before him because I really wanted to see what the board was going to do without my 2 cents. I have a financial interest. I brought Mr. Tunis into the project. But I had a very big vested interest in seeing what the board was going to do because this village, as a year-round population, is dying. My son is exactly right. The population base on year-round residents has diminished dramatically. And some of us made the mistake of leaving the village and want to come back, and it's almost impossible. Most of us can't afford $4 and $5 million homes on half-acre lots. The fact that Mr. Tunis wouldn't give the price was really a function of the process. He wasn't supposed to be at that point in the process yet. And the reason he didn't give a price was he going to get 30 units or 56 units or 42 units? How do you pick a price when you don't know how many units you have? There's a land cost. You have to divide it by the number of units. As far as water quality, all those issues should have been addressed in a process. But this board is, like many other boards, presiding over the death of the year-round village of Southampton. And it's high time this board start taking affirmative action to do something about it. Thank you.
Anthony, you raise your hand.
Do they have to be about this subject?
Why don't we get through this subject and then I'll let you come up here and change the subject, okay? Yes.
Noelle Bailey, 147 Sandy Hollow. Thank you for going on the technicality and actually defining that for us. It's something that we have a hard time getting out of other people. I would like to say that I moved here and saved to live here, and I don't think that the density is needed to buy a house here. I did it when I was 23 by saving as much as I could, and it can be done and properties can be found. It's just people want to have move-in ready turnkey places, and that doesn't happen when you're buying a lower level house. If you want to not pay $3 or $4 million for a house, maybe look at one that needs renovation instead of saying, I need. Do a little work on it, elbow grease. That's what I'm doing right now, and it's a pain, but it will be worth it. Thank you.
Thanks. Anyone else who has not spoken would like to speak? You already
Can I just say one thing?
Sure.
One thing I think you should all be well aware of is that our attorney's resolution tonight wasn't something that we asked him to do. We didn't tell him we don't want this, therefore come up with an idea that squashes it in its infancy. He just gave us his legal interpretation of whether or not this qualified for something, and his answer, I found out about it yesterday. I had no input into it, and I don't think any of the other board members did either. He's given us his legal opinion, and we've taken it. And you should realize that. Thank you.
Francis, you already had a chance to speak. Paul? We'll have another one at the end of the meeting.
Hi, Paul Bolo, 95 Fox Hollow Lane. I want to thank the board, the trustees, the mayor, and the village attorney for their ruling. I think what's important at this point, after looking at a narrow passing of this proposed development to the planning board, is really looking at and assessing the section of the village code, which is 116.6, which allows for PDD within 3 acres or greater with the frontage necessary. So I would suggest that the board reviews this 1990 law and determines whether or not they feel not only that the half mile distance from office district and village business is something that we think will shape, if kept in its current form, will shape the village in a positive direction. Some of the other points that I think are important, even though you've already ruled, are that any type of traffic study at this point is inconclusive based off the fact that the Bishop's Pond development and the increase in traffic hasn't been recognized yet, nor has the increase of traffic been recognized for the proposed development of a supermarket on County Road 39 for the former location of IGHL. The final thing that I'm going to say is that when Broad Hollow development, which this property abuts on Moses Lane, when that was originally brought to the board and to convert the farm field that was formerly there, which is now Fox Hollow and Harvest Lane, my late father actually met with the trustees at the time had suggested a second opening. So directly across the street from the proposed development, there's an opening now to the subdivision that we referred to as Fox Hollow and Harvest Lane, which is actually Broad Hollow. But originally there was only going to be one entrance and one exit to that subdivision. It was intervention of community from neighbors that caused the reduction of one lot in order to have safe entrance and exit in order to that subdivision. So I thank the board for their time and their decision today. Thank you.
Anyone else who has not spoken during this public comments? Okay. So we're going to close this public. We got, oh, sorry. Yeah, you were going to change the subject. Come on up here, Anthony. Yeah, thanks.
Anthony Punnett. I live at 310 Hill Street. I hate to diffuse the drama and talk about something that probably not that many people here care about, but I wanted to talk about something that the trustees have recently been made aware of, the proposal to change the zoning along North Sea Road, particularly the office district, allow changes so that owners in that district could rent to uses in line with village business. As a property owner there at 200 North Sea Road, I just want to lend support to that proposal, wholeheartedly support that effort, because as someone who's been involved with trying to lease that property for the last 6 or 7 years, I can tell you that we've had a very difficult time leasing to anybody that we have a legal as of right, would have an as of right use over there, meaning professional office as opposed to retail. 95% of the inquiries that I fielded through over the years I had to turn down, among them very, very interesting businesses that would have been a huge benefit to the community, one of them being the supermarket that's now going to be over on Hampton Road, that I think is going to, a lot of people are concerned about the congestion that that's going to add to the inner village. And I'd just like to point out that the whole avenue is just tremendously underutilized. It could be very beneficial to decongesting the inner village if some of the retail uses that needed larger areas in which to operate their business, if they were able to settle over there. I mean, the whole street is it seems like a time capsule from 1970, which is when the office district was enacted. And, the particular building that I own had a long retail history prior to that. I think in the 60s, the owners of the building decided to put their own law offices there. And when the change of zoning came around, they just, automatically froze that building as office district. And now, times have changed, and we don't have such a tremendous need for office district, at all. As it happens, I've leased 2 offices for the most part over there. But the rents they pay really don't justify the tremendous amount of money we had to put into that building. So it would be a great idea for you to consider, and I really hope that you'll lend some serious consideration to it.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Anthony. Okay. All right. So we're going to close the public comment. We got public hearings. We have a continuation of the public hearing on the proposed budget for fiscal year 2014-15. Do we have any? I'll wait until everybody's. Okay, do we have anybody from the public who would like to comment on the budget? See? Yeah. It's the first time I've ever had anybody laugh about a public comment about a municipal budget. But, okay. So,
Aging gracefully.
that's right, yeah. Okay. All right. Anybody from the board would like to make a comment about this? Okay. Well, we've had 2 public sessions on the budget. We've had no public comments on it. The budget itself falls under the tax cap, and he said everybody did a fantastic job in working with the supervisors, and the supervisors did a really great job. And Steve, you are to be commended for your leadership on this, and And thank you to the board for your input on this stuff. So I would actually like to close the public hearing on this. So I'll make a motion to close the public hearing on the budget of fiscal year ending 5/31/2015.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Your
So-
motion to adopt the budget?
I'll make a motion to adopt the, let me just pull out the final number here.
Should we go on the first page,
Yeah, the first page, and I was gonna get the last here, so, I'd like to make a motion to adopt the, budget of $20,615,608, with a, tax rate increase of, was it?
1.38%.
Yeah, 1.38%.
Second?
Second?
Roll call vote. Trustee Az?
Aye.
Trustee Irving?
Aye.
Mayor Epley?
Aye.
Trustee McCann?
Aye.
Trustee Hatcher?
And aye.
So moved.
Well done, guys. Great job. Good work by everybody. And thank you, Steve and Gary Leski and all the supervisors for the job that they've done. So, okay. The communications to the board.
Okay, we have one item from the Commissioner on Veterans Patriotic Events. The Commissioner on Veterans Patriotic Events would like to request permission to hold a short parade on Monday, May 26th as part of a Memorial Day service. The parade will begin at approximately 10:45. All are invited to attend. We'd also like to request permission to hold our annual 4th of July parade on Friday, July 4th at 10 a.m. Thank you for consideration on these matters and hope to see you on May 26th. Very truly yours, Susan Stanton.
I'd like to make a motion authorizing the Southampton Commission on Veterans Patriotic Events to hold the parades as per their letter dated April 15th, 2014.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any resolutions? Item 1, resolve that the reading of the minutes for the public session of April 10th, 2014 be dispensed with, and that those minutes be accepted as filed by the village administrator, and the actions taken at that meeting be and hereby are ratified and approved. Got a motion? Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Resolved that the claims for the warrants dated April 22nd, 2014 totaling $387,882.69. Warrant 14, General Fund, $29,547.52. Warrant 5, Firehouse Bond Fund, $21,553.08. Warrant 11, Capital Reserve Fund, and $26,803.75. Warrant 11, Trust Fund, and the village payroll for the period ended April 17th, 2014 be ordered and approved. Got a motion? Second?
Second?
Discussion. Item 1, 71 Hill LLC, May rent for the building inspector's office, $4,784. Page 3, Cleary Consulting on 132 McGee Street, $1,425. Cook Marin Insurance Installment, $2,384.50. Corwitz Auto Body, Marsh Towing, $1,100. Diane Signs, lettering for 2 police cruisers, $2,500. Christopher Damone, Fire Department Medical Investment, $1,000. Page 4, Firematic Supply, pumper lights for the fire department, $10,125. Page 5, H.O. Penn Machinery, parts for the payload repair, $1,006.52. Page 6, Long Island Cauliflower Associates soil conditioner for the Parks Department, $1,860. National Grid March building bill, $2,477.66. Page 7, New York State Health Insurance from May, $236,480.57. Office of the State Controller, February fines, $13,659. Report PSE&G for the Police Department, $6,610.29. Page 9, Sprague, 2,500 gallons of diesel fuel, $8,278.38. Suffolk County National Bank, bond payment for the 9/11 equipment at PD, $54,607.75. Page 10, Town of Brookhaven, dumping fees for the Highway Department, $4,603.50. Verizon March telephone bill, $3,643.59. And page 11, VitaCare Corporation ambulance equipment, $3,103.51. Firehouse bond warrant, Central Air, final payment, $29,547.52. This is actually the final payment on the closing out of the building of the firehouse. Short a little bit, which is coming out of the capital reserve, which I'll get into in a second. Showing the capital reserve warrant, the balance of that Central Air payment, $9,287.27. Boston Supply, second floor HVAC units, $12,265.81. trust warrant, InterScience Research, planning for the ferry dock at Agawam, $2,832.75, and Peconic Bay fence for the dog park, $23,970. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby approves that a valid beach parking permit must be displayed in or on any motor vehicle parked or standing in or upon the parking facility at Cooper's Beach during weekends and holidays from May 24th, 2014 through June 21st, 2014, and on a daily basis commencing on June 22nd, 2014 through and including September 1st, 2014. Have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees approves the appointing the following individuals as election inspectors for the village election on June 20th, 2014, effective April 22nd, 2014. Gina Aresta, chairperson, $25 an hour. Georgia Chapek, $20 an hour. Gail Reesig, $20 an hour. Mariette Pincus, $20 an hour. Rachel Foster, $20 an hour. Betty Nichols, $20 an hour. Jenny Fillengirl, $25 an hour. And Diane Fisher, $25 an hour. Motion?
I'll make the motion.
Second?
Second?
The discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
You only botched two names there.
That's it?
That's it, just two.
Rich didn't say anything?
No, he didn't say anything over there, so.
No, he's slow.
Because he got me on the phone the other day, that's all.
That's right.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby approves the attached schedule of budget transfers to eliminate line item overages for the period April 22nd, 2014. Can I have a motion? Second?
Second.
Discussion. Item 1 is $400 in court equipment coming from court part-time. Item 2, $2,100 into insurance coming from claims. Item 3, $8,000 to radio operators overtime from jail attendant. Item 4, $300 is to safety inspector's equipment, $700 into building inspector utilities, with $1,000 coming from fire marshal contractual. Next one is street maintenance contractual, $5,000 in coming from street maintenance supplies. Next one is $1,400 to planning contractual coming from employee benefits, $1,400. Next item is $1,000 into traffic control electricity, with $500 coming from ethics committee and $500 from the workforce advisory committee. Next item is building supplies, $4,000 in, buildings utility, $2,000 in, buildings fuel oil, $2,000 in, with $1,000 coming from buildings miscellaneous, $2,000 from buildings overtime, and $5,000 from street maintenance fuel. And the last item is $20,000 to central garage supplies, $4,000 to central garage contractual, with $20,000 from trustee special projects, and $4,000 from street maintenance fuel. All in favor?
Aye.
Last item is resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby approves the following payments from the capital reserve account, subject to permissive referendum. $9,287.27 to Central Air Corp from the Fire Facilities Reserve, and $12,265.81 from the Facilities Reserve for Johnson Supply. Have a motion?
Motion?
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, discussion items. Last meeting, we discussed commercial parking. Rick, I don't know if you had a chance to look at any refined structure or fee structure for that?
I haven't, it wouldn't be up to me for a fee structure, but I did, why don't you pass these around. One page for each of you. Yeah, what I did was, in response to your request, I prepared a draft resolution for consideration by the village board. Since this involves parking stuff, it doesn't have to be a local law. Anything you do with respect to parking can be by resolution. So this grants authority for temporary parking exemptions to the village clerk for hardship or other good cause, and leaves it up to the village clerk to determine the form of an application for an exemption and the form of a document evidencing the grant, such as a letter or certificate or permit. I know from what Steve said at the last meeting that typically he does some kind of a letter to evidence the exemption. So this would leave it up to him for resident, for commercial or non-commercial. And it would also provide for an application fee in the case of, and that's what you were looking for, was an application fee in the case of a temporary parking exemption for a commercial vehicle. So I left the fee amount blank, and of course it can be changed at any time by resolution. So what this resolution does, it gives, in addition to setting the fee, it gives the background so that there's something for the village clerk to reference.
Steve, one of the...
Okay, and just one other thing. I have a couple of comments about this draft that are of a legal nature that I think would be better conveyed by me to you in executive session.
Okay.
So after you talk about this, to whatever extent you're going to talk about it tonight, I would ask that we discuss it further in executive session, so I can give you some legal comments, some other comments.
Okay. All right, so when we do this?
And this is only a draft. I mean,
yeah.
you can add as much to this as you want.
Yeah.
In terms of...
The one question I had was, as it is now, what do we do with the commercial traffic that's parking outside of?
Well, basically, we give them a letter, and they say we have 10 cars or 10 trucks that are going to be parked on the side of the road. What happens is that, you know, versus the, you know, if they came to 30, it would be an issue. If it was 10, we can deal with it. I'm just using those numbers as an example based on where they are. But the problem is that they then go back and they Xerox this letter and they put it on 25 to 30 cars. So as an example, if we're going along Meadow Lane and we know we can fit 10 in there, we'll do that. If we know it's going to be 30, then they got to park 20 at Cooper's Beach or some other access lot.
My only concern is a lot of these builders will bring in a guy for a day and he may not even know he's working that day. And how do we...
Well, it's not dictated to a specific vehicle. So let's say I came in, I took out numbers 1 through 10. And I know you were coming in one day, I'll give you that number 9 for Wednesday, and I'll give it to somebody else for Thursday. But what I'm looking to do is, one, it can't be duplicated.
Right.
We have control of the number on it, okay? And it's a limited period of time, say, 30 days, or they need it for 2 weeks. We go with what they say they need.
So if they request 20 parking spaces, they get a
Numbers 1
packet
through
of
10.
20.
Pre-numbered, 1 through 10.
Gotcha.
We're looking at possibly a $10, fee for the 30-day period for each of that. But the main issue what we're dealing with now is they just take it to the Xerox machine and run off 20, 30 copies.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so why don't we do this? Why don't we, I'll take a moment, since it's the first time we've had a chance to look at it.
Sure.
When we go into executive session tonight, Rick, you can give us feedback on this, and then you can bring this back at the next meeting to make a decision on, okay?
Okay.
Great.
The next item was we have a request for the Southampton Animal Shelter to do a dog walk on the grand opening day of the dog park at Lowell Apprentice. They want to start at Lowell Apprentice and head south on Windmill Lane, from Pond Lane to First Neck, back on Hill Street, and then back on Windmill. Anticipate 100 participants.
Do they normally do one every year? Is that the one that?
No, we're not doing
This
this
is
route. We're not gonna do this route. This is,
too disruptive.
yeah. No, this is,
First Neck, yeah.
yeah, no,
No.
historically,
What
what
did they do
we've
last
done
year?
is,
They haven't. This is just new.
we've done dog walks before.
Oh, we've done
It was
the
Paws
loose-
Across-
right,
It's the
right.
same group, it's different organizer, but it was really just a loop around Cooper's Farm Road, is what that was.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what we.
And, which required no, assistance from the police department. And they were able to walk on the sidewalks in most part, and it was a, nice little discos.
How did they come down off of Cooper's Farm back to
They did
Windmill?
White,
or-
White
Wait
Street.
and come
White.
down?
Yeah, they just,
Well,
south on
actually,
Windmill.
It's dangerous because they're on
It's very
sidewalks
dangerous.
over there. And the cars come
Yeah.
around that pond
Yeah,
lane.
the
It's
pond
not,
lane is not
it's a problem.
it's too narrow.
This would still enable them to go back to Lowell Apprentice, right?
Yeah,
They-
it just goes
Yeah, White and then go
Oh,
back down Windmill.
Windmill,
White.
to Cooper's Farm to White, back
Okay.
Windmill.
Okay.
So
And
it's
that
a
would
little-
be that's the route that's worked before, and, yeah, unfortunately, I didn't even read this before.
Right.
So,
Okay. I'll bring it up with them.
so, I mean, we can approve tonight the.
Subject to the route change?
Subject to the route change. So I'll make a motion to authorize the Southampton Animal Shelter to hold the dog walk in accordance with the route change.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, the next item is, about 2 meetings ago or so, I had done a presentation with regard to the back fire escape for Village Hall. And we had awarded the bid to Clark and Wilkins for $31,230. Which after we went back to them, they decided to back out of it. They don't want to deal with the problems with prevailing wage and reporting requirements and everything that goes along with that. So we're back to this situation here. Mark Schiffert, who's the engineering on this, is suggesting we go with Jade Construction, who's the one that actually did the elevator shaft. It's a $30,000 price. The standard industrial works, $26,330, does not include the demo, which would, if we include the demo, would be above Jade's price.
Okay. All right, great. Okay. Is there a reason why they didn't recommend Jade the first time?
He felt that Clark and Wilkins, all they do is fire escape work. Jade is more of a GC type of person, but after speaking with them again, he feels they can handle it. They're going to sub out a lot of it. And he has the specs that it will be built to suit, so to speak. So he's comfortable that they can do it.
I'm sorry, what were the main issues again why they're backing out? Because
They don't want to deal with the prevailing wage requirements, so all the reporting requirements and paying prevailing wage to.
Weren't they aware that that was
They
a
were aware of that.
prerequisite anyways?
Why they changed their mind on that? I mean, it's right in the bid specs that everything's
Exactly.
prevailing
It's
wage.
pretty standard. And Jade obviously is
Right.
aware of that.
Yep, absolutely.
Everybody is. Okay.
Yeah, Jade complied with regard to doing the elevator shaft, so they're well aware of what's required.
Okay. Any further comment or anything like that? So I'd like to make a motion to authorize the hiring of Jade Construction to complete the fire escape task in accordance with the RFP.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And the last item is, at last meeting, we had approved the field day for the Montessori School for May 22nd. But Larry Wojcik had come and requested respectfully that we move it till after Memorial Day because of the use of the park by the field day crowd, and he's trying to get it ready for Memorial Day ceremonies. It really, disrupts what he's getting done. So we went back to Montessori, and they agreed to change it to June 2nd with a rain date of June 3rd.
Great. Okay. So I don't think we need to.
Just made you aware of the date change.
Okay, great. Okay, comments from board members here. Trustee Yaz.
Yeah, I want to thank everyone in the public for showing up during this discussion on both sides. I want to thank our attorney for his due diligence in coming up with a rule, with an opinion on this. Again, I always find it tough making a decision like this, not because anybody sitting on either side of the argument, it's cut and dry to that person. We and the boards underneath us we're here to make a decision, whether we like it or not. That's why we're here. That's why we make the big bucks. And when I said I don't take it lightly, and on the apply to anybody else in the audience was taking it lightly. But it's a decision that is not to be taken lightly, because clearly somebody wants something done, and it's tough to tell somebody that they cannot, even though the general consensus here. But there are some supporters of it, and somebody pointed out earlier that the need for housing and some type of remedy to keep year-round population, that is apparent. We are aware of it. I think everybody is. Senior housing and the definition of it, again, that can go round and around what people think and what they want. But I think it always gets down to where does it go? That's always a question, not what we need or how we need it or whether we need it, but where is whatever we need gonna go? And that's always the issue that we're here to address, unfortunately and fortunately. The Corrigans, it was pointed out by the attorney, yes, I have a strong history like most people do. And knowing them personally, as everybody up here does, I feel if I have to make a decision that's not quite in their favor, or going along with the decision that's not quite in their favor, but it doesn't mean they can't do something. It just means perhaps they can't do what they want first, which means they go back to the drawing board. It's not a total loss. So I look at it that way. That's any consolation to them. Don't know. Time will tell. But in answer to a concern brought up that whether we as a board are paying attention to our duty of the lack of housing for old and young, my answer to that is that we are, which is why we've been talking about the master plan and the need for sewer district in our business district, because that's exactly what is going to allow density where I feel it's needed in a business district, the downtown district. The need for any housing or so forth, whether it should have been where it was proposed by the Corrigans, really was a question here in my mind. And perhaps that's not the place it should be. Whether we need it or not, I like to focus more, which I think as a board we are leaning towards, is again, how do we improve the foot traffic and thereby the year-round occupancy of our downtown district, meaning restaurants and more stores and more shops and housing, apartments, what have you. That's where I think we need to start from within before branching out and doing the opposite. So my answer to some concerns brought up is that we are, as a board, addressing that. It's not easy, because again, no matter, as I find out being up here, no matter what idea comes, how great it is, there is always two sides to it. So there's a pro and a con, a for and against, no matter what it is. And again, even tonight, when mostly people were, I think the majority was against this, but again, I think there were some people who were for it, but they didn't show up, but whatever. So there's always somebody on the other side. So that's why, again, sometimes it's tough to make a decision in a small community where we know the people involved, we know the players. But I do think things happen for a reason. I think the process will work itself out, and I think eventually everybody will get something that will satisfy them. Just have to go back to the drawing board. So again, I thank everybody that showed up during this whole time and spoke very candidly about it, some more than others. A couple of interesting quotes tonight. And again, I do thank Rick for preparing that for our review, because that certainly, I think, answered a lot of questions that a lot of people brought up, and it really, punctuated that, in my opinion. So, thank you, and thank you.
You're welcome. Mike?
Well, Trustee Yaz, you did a great job in saying what you did.
Sometimes.
Building in the village of Southampton obviously is one of the hot topics today, because everywhere as you look, somebody's building a house, and I don't think I've ever seen it in all my years in the village. I just want to reaffirm that I believe, and I honestly believe, that we have some of the toughest zoning codes that we've ever had in the village. But what happens is often wants, needs, housing design, even material use change. And consequently, we go from a desired ranch house to a big, tall house. And I think this board, all of us, recognize that that's an issue, particularly in the smaller lots. And the mayor has sent forth to the Planning Commission to review height for small lots. And even the larger lots where there's FEMA requirements, often the house gets raised automatically, and then you have this even larger creation there. But I think going forward that a lot of these issues need to be addressed, and I think the board as a whole is willing to go back and look at the zoning issues and make the modifications where we can, because there is no question about it. If you own an older, smaller house in the village, and all of a sudden this person comes along and builds their dream house next to you, and it towers over you, it can be pretty unpleasant. And we all need to take a look at that.
Thanks, Mike.
Agreed.
Nancy?
Well, I'm getting off the subject.
Okay.
I want to talk about the parking because we all know that Citarella is opening shortly, and everybody is wondering how is that all going to work. I had a tour of Citarella. It's really terrific, and I think those people who are foodies out there will be happy with it. But there is the problem of the parking, and I know, Mark, you've been involved with this because we're going to restripe Hampton Road, and I had a meeting with Gary today, and we do use a firm that's out of Connecticut. Most of Long Island uses them. They come in and stripe. We're begging them to put us at the top of the list because we're changing Hampton Road. We are moving the yellow line over a little bit to the north. We're doing parking on the diagonal on the south side of the street, which is the Citarella side of the street. You will get, it is probably, I think Gary said 30-some, we're going all the way down to Town Hall. So there will be on the diagonal on that side of the street all the way down to Town Hall. And I think we're increasing it by going down to Town Hall by 30-something additional parking spots. I think it'll be helpful because, as you well know, people will pull in there, will run in there, will come out. They'll be in 20 minutes to a half an hour, and then they'll be gone. So, and then by narrowing Hampton Road, it will slow traffic down because any of you that has ever traveled on Hampton Road, it becomes the highway. The minute people turn that corner, boom, they're down that road. So I think it's going to be a big improvement. It will hopefully be done before Memorial Day. I mean, that's always the issue. People always say, why do they stripe the roads when all the people get here? And it really has to do with the weather, that the temperature has to be consistently above 50 degrees. So we're hoping, and we all know that hasn't happened except for this week so far. So we're hoping to get that done as quickly as possible because I think it will make a big difference for everybody in the community. The other thing is we had our beautification meeting today, and a couple of things that we discussed were the planter boxes entering into the O'Connell parking lot, which is the parking lot down by Little Red. We have some brick planters there that really suffered tremendously over the winter. They're heaving and they're breaking because ice got in there and sort of broke them all up. So we are going to take those out. We haven't designed anything for the future, but what we think we will do for this year is we will put a brick pad down where they were, and we will put flower boxes there, and we will probably do some lattice work behind the flower boxes just to camouflage the parking lot a little bit, because that was the whole purpose of that, even though they didn't really grow the yews high enough in my mind. So that will be a change that will be taking place, as well as we continually look at the section that is in front of Monument Square where we have those white barricades. We've been very unhappy with the white barricades. So we've come to a conclusion on that, but I don't think that will be done by this summer. But we're working on that as well, something that will be more attractive.
Makes sense. Bill?
Two things, regarding this application with the Corrigans that's been before us. I did want to make a few comments. I wish I'd made these while everybody was here, but the Hamptons in general, and certainly our village in particular, are undergoing and living through a demographic nightmare. Locals are dying, and seasonals are exploding. And in real estate, the highest bid carries the day, and we are facing the day when, as young Mr. Wines pointed out, that firemen and a whole lot of other people that are intricate parts of the community are just not going to be able to afford to live there. That's true now. It's going to get worse. But we can't control affordability. I did want to, the 2010 census showed that the village of Southampton lost just over 20% of its year-round white population and 40% of its African American population. That's, I think the beat is not only going on, but thundering on. And I would like to say that I can't imagine anything that they would have done to that application that would persuade me to approve anything beyond the current half-acre zoning. So that they should, I would almost like them to be aware of that, because if they go through a lot of expense and trouble and fighting the ruling that was made tonight and so on, only 3 of us are voting on this, and each of our votes become critical. And I don't see it, and I am not going to see it, barring something miraculous. I will not vote to approve anything beyond the permitted zoning as it now stands. One other thing, Mr. Bachman was here before, and I thought he would stay and say something, but he appeared before us at our last meeting. And one thing I was going to propose, Rick and Mark and board members, is that we separate, if it makes sense, the issue of dealing with drainage in the floodplain area from the 35 feet plus 3 feet equals 38 feet. I personally, if I don't know that what legal issues may make this difficult, but I frankly, tomorrow, I would vote to make the maximum height in the village, no matter what plain you're in, the Great Plains, the flood plains, or whatever, 35 feet. And if you want to put a 3-foot, raise your ground level 3 feet, which clearly aggravates the drainage problems, you do so at the expense of the total height of the house. And I think we could do that quickly. I'm afraid if we meld the two, the drainage, you will refer it to everything but the local police department, you know, for opinions, and it could be a year from now before something happens. I frankly would like to deal with the other issue post haste, so that no more 38-foot high houses go up while we're fiddling, you know. And so if it makes sense to separate the two, and because I think the other one, the height issue is very cut and dry. Drainage is intricate and may require a lot of input from the planning commission and planning board and so on. And so if that makes sense, I'd like to make that suggestion. Other than that, I've said my piece.
Okay. All right. Yeah, so just a reminder that Saturday is opening day for Little League. Be up there at 10 o'clock is I think it actually starts at 11, but if you want to get a good parking spot.
Right.
you think we have
Get there
parking
at
problems?
9.
You think we have parking problems in the village right now on a weekend in the summertime? Do opening day Little League up at Downs Family Park and stuff, so.
Also, since you brought up parking in the village, could we have a discussion about the valet parking that was sent?
No, we didn't
We haven't.
have,
We should have a
done that,
discussion, but I don't know if you want to discuss it here or in.
Or we could discuss it here if you want to.
I think we should.
Go ahead.
I have an interest in this. We had received a letter from a family that had written to many of the different municipalities out east to create what's called a valet parking. And of course, my first response to this, and I had a conversation with the mayor about it, was if we can't find a parking space, how are they going to find a parking space to put our car in? So, but then we started to think about parking lots that are private that are not necessarily utilized on the weekends because they have office buildings and the offices are closed on the weekends. And so we thought, plus the school parking lot, we have always thought, gee, why doesn't the school let us use their parking lot on the weekend when it's crowded, especially if it's a cloudy weekend and people are all throughout the village? But it occurred to me that maybe we could create some sort of a relationship based on only the valet parking people doing that. So then, using that, and maybe we could indemnify them, or there could be a fee that the valet people would be paying to these office buildings that have private parking, and possibly the school, which is something I think we need to look into. Mm-hmm. Then the next question was, well, where would the pickup point be? Because that's a little difficult. I mean, if you go up and down every single one of our streets, they're all crowded, they're all backed up. Where would the pickup point be? And the mayor was saying that possibly we could do it down on at Monument Square in front of Lake Agawam. Somebody could pull up, somebody could meet them there, they could take their car, people could go off and spend how many hours they want, come back, and they pick up their car. It's a thought. It's done in other communities. In the communities that it is being done, people love it. And I think last year was almost the straw that broke the camel's back. I mean, it was just unbelievable. We had people parking in spots that weren't parking spots, and it was dangerous. So, you know, I'm thinking I'd like to look into it.
Okay.
All
I
right?
agree. Okay, so why don't we set up a meeting with the,
Can I
Yeah.
just say one thing about
Yeah.
that? I mean, I remember seeing that about as well. Mixed things on the, you know, having a valet and then somebody pays on, especially with using the school. I mean, it's a public school, so somebody private property, obviously, I think they can do what they want. It's private property. They want to charge and get into some private service. But what I do like about, because I've talked with somebody else, I think we should encourage people through the school, obviously, to use that when they're not using it in the summertime. Not so much to indemnify them and use it as a private enterprise to have valet parking, but to encourage people in that area to go park there.
If
There's a
the
lot of
school
spots.
will allow it. I
If
don't
the
know if
school
they
allowed
close,
it,
I don't
so-
know if they close their gates. They may close
Well,
their gates.
well, I think it's better to appeal to them to as a public school to
There
use
is a
it for
gate
public.
there.
There is a
Yes,
gate.
but
I
last
know
year,
it is.
the school was redoing the bus barn, and
Yeah.
so they had all the buses parked in that lot, so it wasn't
It's normally
available.
open because you can go to the playground back
Yeah.
there. So,
Mm-hmm.
but I mean, I, you know, one thing that I agree to touch, I think we should somehow, you know, have some conversations with the school to use that, whether it's for paying valet parking or just to say, let people park there, because I think
Right.
that, especially with the new Cinderella's coming in, I think if people are told, I know business owners on that street have discussed that. I believe
Right.
they mentioned that to you, the mayor, that could be an option where you reach out to school and say, hey, they informed the people, the patrons there, park over there on the corner of school, plenty of parking.
Right.
So I go,
Mark, can I just say one more truly brief thing? Getting back to the Corrigan proposal, listening to young Mr. Wines and so on, and the idea that young people don't have any place to live anymore in this community. If I thought for 1 minute that they were building something that young people could afford, I would at least listen to it. I'm absolutely as positive as I can be that after all, they've labeled it senior housing, so right off the bat, they're not aiming at the younger market. And I'm over 21. Those houses are going to cost a goddamn fortune that young people cannot dream of paying. So any indication that it's going to be affordable because it's high density is simply a dream. Period.
Yeah, and then finally, you know, I just want to thank the emergency responders here, because we had some events that have occurred over the last couple of weeks here. That we had a large house fire in Bridgehampton, and our guys responded to. We had some brush fires
on McGee
at
Street.
what's that?
On McGee Street, yeah.
On
Right,
McGee Street, we had brush fire there. We've had some significant events, and then on we also had a tragic auto accident, which you know, it's you know, Jason Pollock passed away there. He was a young man who really lived life and was a world traveler and great adventurist and well loved by many people in the community, and so my heart goes out to the Pollock family. And it's a you know, two of my sons responded. One is a fireman and one is an ambulance driver, and they witnessed someone they knew who had passed away, and it was you know, it's very much a strong reminder of you know, how fragile life is. And he passed away about 1.5 miles away from his house, and you know, it just goes back to, we're going into the summer season, a constant reminder to people to, you know, think before they act. And he wasn't the driver of the car, and it's the potential lost with this young man is incredible. And he lived probably in his 24 years, lived a life that we'd all dream about, from surfing all over the world and cliff diving and all sorts of great things that he did. And he will be missed. And so again, it goes out, my heart goes out to the Pollock family, but it needs to serve as a reminder to everybody in this community about the issues associated with what you do behind the wheel, and make smart decisions. And thank the first responders who they rolled out of bed at 2:37 on a Saturday night to respond to that. And it's a tragedy. It really is. So, but thank you to our volunteers. It's greatly appreciated doing what you do. So, with that being said, it's a second public comment. Anyone else from the public would like to make comment?
Well said, Mayor.
Thanks.
Donna DeLeo again, 125 Fox Hollow Lane. I just, with great sensitivity and as much understanding as I can gather how difficult this was for you all, this decision, I want to thank you all for the hard work and service to community. And also Stephen and Brenda for all of the questions, my many questions to them that they were able to answer while I was trying to gain information so that I would have a better understanding of the process and what you all were going through. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the public would like to?
This is what you call waiting your turn. I'm Judy Johnson. I live at 239 Little Plains Road, and I am here because I am one of a couple people left on the Southampton Village Senior Committee. Unfortunately, this was formed around 2006, and it had a larger number of people, but most of them have moved on. And when I say a couple, there are two of us left. However, I want to thank you for your support of this in the budget. You've always provided more money than we used up. And for a number of years, we've had a luncheon at the Cultural Center, which was a very nice affair, attended by over 100 people. Some were not from the village, but some people need to have their friend bring them. And we've been very open about that. We have one event on the calendar for this year, so please jot it down. December 10th at the Historical Museum. From 1 to 3, we will have a holiday party with music, and if I can convince the gentleman again, he will be Santa Claus and give out candy canes, and it will be open to village residents. The mission of this committee is stated in the booklet, which your enterprising secretary, Brenda, gave me my copy of again tonight, is to inform the village residents of services available to them. Now, this village cannot provide all the services that people would like, but there are still a lot of things available through the village, the town, the county. So the mission is to notify people about the services, but also to give them a couple of social events during the year, which we've tried to do. We put an ad in the village newsletter asking for people to join this committee. And through Eileen and your office, I have received 3 phone calls. The agendas of the people who called me were mainly concerned with transportation, which is the biggest issue for the aging population here. And with Human Resources now discontinuing its transportation services and no longer having the monthly senior luncheon 9 times a year, seniors are looking for more things. The village can't accommodate all the things people want, and we know that. But we have referred them to the town. They have a transportation shuttle. It's not available on your whim, but you can get help there. So the only thing that I am getting up here to say today is thank you for your support in the past, and also please consider ways that we can help seniors in this village, not only with housing, but with their needs right today, which are transportation, and perhaps some events that reduce the social isolation of older people. Okay? Thank you very much for what you've done so far, and for tonight's meeting, which was very interesting.
Anyone else from the public would like to speak, Jerry?
My name is Gerald Martin, a resident of the village, and it was a very interesting meeting. A lot of good points were brought out, but one thing that you said prompted me to get up and speak. When you said there was 40% African Americans leaving the town, the village of Southampton, and that's so very true. But why are we leaving? We're leaving because we can't afford to live here. We're leaving because there's no jobs. There's so many different things, so many different reasons, and I'm quite sure that the African American community is not the only one that suffers this, but we suffer it much more intensely than a lot of other communities. I listened to this lady here talk about the senior plight and the things that transportation, and that's another issue, transportation for the seniors. And I'm glad that you also said that perhaps it could be a partnership between the town and the village to bring about some changes. There's so many different variables that can happen. Talking about the senior citizens building, that's something that's very, very desperately needed. I look around, I ride around the village and I ride around the towns, I see this complex, and I don't care what you call them, but there's still complexes. One right down the street from me. Question I ask myself, can I afford that? Of course not. So I say, they got one down on Halsey, Davis White Lane, another one over here, but who can afford it? That's not for us. What about the black community? What about us? Why can't the village and the town come together and perhaps pool some money and maybe buy a property and build something? I don't know. It's your jobs to figure this thing out. But it's a very frightening thing. It's a very frightening thing. If I was to leave my house in Southampton, I'm so grateful for my family, I could never have nothing out here. I couldn't afford nothing out here. And I'm just one of many. So I'm glad to see that these issues are being addressed. I've been speaking with a lady in the town who's supposed to be the affirmative action liaison between the village and the town, the situation. But, it's so many ideas and so many things that is kicked out and brought out. So perhaps we can have an arena to bring this out to the town board.
Okay. Great. Thanks, Jerry.
Oh, one last thing.
Okay.
One last thing. You was talking about first responders.
Yeah.
I am now New York State chaplain, so I'm going to be
All right.
one of them.
Good.
One of them.
Great.
Don't work me too hard.
Thanks, Jerry. All right, great. Anyone else from the public would like to speak? That being said, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn to executive session for the purpose of discussing personnel matters involving village employees.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, aye.